to Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist Fellowship Sunday service. My name, as most of you know, is Kathy Bernhardt, and I'm going to be the coordinator for today's service. You can change the view from speaker view to gallery view in the right upper hand corner. And service is being recorded. The recording will be stopped when we do our joys and concerns, so you can feel free to share freely. If you want to speak during that, you can unmute yourself. You are muted now. You can unmute yourself in your lower left-hand corner or by holding down the space bar while you speak. I want to welcome Peggy Turnbull, who is our speaker today. We had a very nice meeting Friday, Mary Jo and Peggy and I trying to get this coordinated. As I said, it's my first time doing it alone. So, anyway, Peggy, Mary Jo will have more to say about Peggy shortly. Next Sunday is the last Sunday of the month. That's the Sunday of the month that we make our donations typically to our approved charities, which are Hope House, Encourage, Painting Pathways, The Haven, and TREP. So you can make a contribution if you wish on the web page or the Facebook page. There's a little donate button that Kim has put up there, and that will go to PayPal. Or you can just send in a donation if you wish to the fellowship. The mail is picked up a couple times a week. I think I want to let you know all those charities have responded to our extra donation very gratefully. And speaking on behalf of the board, we are extremely grateful to you all for your participation and for your charity to these groups. So now I will turn the meeting over to Mary Jo, the service to Mary Jo.
Good morning. I'm so happy to see your faces this morning. Happy to be the service leader today with Peggy. Before we go on, are there any announcements that need to be made today? If so, just unmute. Wonderful. I'm going to take just a couple minutes this morning and read you some words from John Lewis. I know you've been following the news of his death, and since I was young, he has been a hero, a legend, and I just would like to read to you. These are his words. You are a light. You are the light. Never let anyone, any person, or any force dampen, dim, or diminish that light. Study the path of others to make your way easier and more abundant. Lean toward the whispers of your own heart. Discover the universal truth. Follow its dictates. Release that need to hate, to harbor division and the enticement of revenge. Release all bitterness. Hold only love and only peace in your heart, knowing that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Choose confrontation wisely. But when it is your time, don't be afraid to stand up, and speak out against injustice. And if you follow your truth down the road to peace and the affirmation of love, if you shine like a beacon for all to see, then the poetry of all the great dreamers and philosophers is yours to manifest into a nation, a world community, and a beloved community that is finally at peace with itself. John Lewis. I welcome Peggy. Peggy, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her before our chalice lighting. Our guest speaker will read today from her first chapbook, which is coming out in September, called The Joy of Their Holiness. I love the title, Peggy. That's beautiful. Peggy was born in Manitowoc. She's our local poet. She was educated in the Manitowoc Public Schools. She attended the University of Wisconsin-Madison, as well as the University of Texas at Austin. She moved to southern West Virginia, where she identified with a lot of the world of poets and writers. But Peggy said it wasn't until she returned to the Lakeshore that she became aware of poetry as her personal calling. And I love the people that inspired her, and so do you. Dr. Jessica Van Slooten, Jean Biegun, and Tom Montag, who was her poetry teacher at the Mill, a place for writers. Peggy has won the M.L.I. Prize in 2019. Congratulations on that, Peggy. And she has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize. Incredible. Our chalice lighting for today. We light this chalice as a symbol of our commitment to our fellowship and to each other. May our many sparks meet and merge in the communion of heart and soul. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share strength in fellowship, thus do we covenant. Our opening words for today are by Margaret A. Kelp, as surely as we belong to the universe. As surely as we belong to the universe, we belong together. We join here to transcend the isolated self, to reconnect, to know ourselves, to be at home, here on earth, under the stars, linked with each other. And at this point, we'll turn off the recording and share any joys and concerns or worries or things of happiness that have come to each other this week. Thank you. Well, on Friday, when Kathy, Peggy, and I had our rehearsal, I was moved by Peggy's beautiful poetry. She talks about the small things, but it was so relatable, and I have the feeling it'll be the same for you. Reverence, place, family. And the principles that I found Peggy will address today are: number one, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Number three, acceptance of one another and encouragement in spiritual growth in our congregations. And number seven, respect for that interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. So at this time, I'm going to welcome Peggy to do her reading and then go into her presentation, which is called The Joy of Their Holiness. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you, Mary Jo. I really appreciate that welcome. I'd like to read You Have to Be Careful by Naomi Shihab Nye. You have to be careful telling things. Some ears are tunnels. Your words will go in and get lost in the dark. Some ears are flat pans, like the miners used, looking for gold. What you say will be washed out with the stones. You look a long time until you find the right ears. Till then, there are birds and lamps to be spoken to, a patient cloth rubbing shine in circles, and the slow, gradually growing possibility that when you find such ears, they already know. Naomi Shihab Nye, the author of the reading, is one of my favorite poets. Her poems begin very simply, and by the end you find that something ordinary and particular has been elevated to a universal level. She writes that a poem provides a sensibility that allows you that sort of mental, emotional, spiritual interaction with everything around you. And that's how I try to approach poetry. So she's my model. My first chapbook, The Joy of Their Holiness, will be published soon by Kelsay Books. And I actually got a message from the publisher. I think it might be out next week. So I'll find out. I'm happy to be able to share some of the poems in it. And I'm grateful to Erica Strauss for writing a blurb for the back cover, and what she wrote made me feel great and made me feel that she understood the poems very well. And I'm very happy that she recommended me to you and that I'm here today. I've selected poems for today from my chapbook that reflect on small things, ordinary moments that reflect family and place. Whether this is also spiritual may depend upon the one who listens, the ears that hear. But the beauty of a poem for me is that simply the fact of it is a form of reverence. In honor of the month of July, I'll start with the first poem in the book. It's called Blueberry, and was inspired by my family's annual July camping trips to the Hiawatha National Forest in the Upper Peninsula. Blueberry. We brandish vintage juice cans and pursue you, fellow denizen of this sandy peninsula. We hunt like sharks, relentless in our quest for the glimmer of royal blue within the verdant scrub. Once found, we kneel to your level, fruit-bearing diva of this sun-dappled glen. We pinch your voluptuous belly from its umbilical stem, toss you into the maw of our makeshift pails, hear your plunk resound in its cavern. The next morning, we fold you and your sisters into sticky batter, drop you by spoonful into a cast iron skillet, listen to you pop in bacon grease that sings with heat. After we eat, we find purple stains on our white paper plates. Fabulous fruit, marrow of July, name of the summer moon, you are the goddess of sweet small things, a thimble full of joy for any who venture to find you. The next three poems are also poems about my childhood. It wasn't until I came back from living in other places for 35 years that I realized how much of my identity is bound up with Northeastern Wisconsin. For example, my familiarity with polka music. This is not surprising since, according to my father, who is a member of several local dance and polka bands over several decades, there were more per capita polka bands in Manitowoc County than anywhere else in the state. Polka morning surprise. Daddy's skin was brown against his white shirt, his band vest yellow as a dandelion, the tuba around his body, a coiled snake that flared into a hollow head. Out of its mouth came sounds round as bubbles that danced into my attic room. On Sunday mornings, we kids ran downstairs to see his silver tuba at rest on the carpet. Sometimes thin slices of wedding cake wrapped in fancy napkins lay beneath its gleaming bell, Daddy's gift, carried back from some northern dance hall where a bride in a white dress told him, "Here's some for your children. Take it home." And here's another polka-themed poem from when I was somewhat older. Baby Boomer. My father played music on Saturday nights, slept late on Sundays. We banged in after church, returned to a kitchen of Holy Land scents, briny olives, zingy red sauce that snuggled into al dente pasta, the kitchen a strange riot after days of meatloaf and fish sticks. Dad poured himself a glass of cold amber, foamy enough to make a fake mustache with, though we never did, not after tasting the bitter stuff. We lunched with the TV on. Romy Gauze trumpeted to a dance floor filled with locals in their Sunday best, promenading to polkas and waltzes. Some couples never stopped twirling, mostly men with women, sometimes two women. There weren't enough men to go around, I decided. At our house, we knew not all had made it home, the jolly music always in the way when we asked to find out more. Next slide, please. Children who never met him. Children who never met him saw the soldier smile in a picture frame at Grandma's, ran in his backyard on brittle grass, avoiding shadows. Sometimes they looked up, felt an angel hover during kickball or jumping rope. No one was ever there. The next poem was written in memory of Daniel Careth, a librarian I worked with at Concord University in Athens, West Virginia. He was born in 1918 in Vienna to a Jewish family and died in West Virginia in 2014. The scenery I noticed while driving through Indiana back home to Wisconsin inspired me to write this poem. Kristallnacht again. In Indiana, empty-headed cornstalks wave at the interstate. Peeling wooden crosses lurk among the goldenrod, forgotten. Deployed decades ago with evangelical zeal, they decorated Appalachian highways when my friend Daniel still lived in West Virginia. They unleashed his crystal nightmares of Vienna. He knocked at our screen door, asked, "If they come again, will you hide me?" Here's another July poem, which is also a West Virginia poem. The poet referenced is Allen Ginsberg. He wrote a footnote to Howl that is a chanted, ecstatic revelation about the holiness of the world. One of the lines is, "The typewriter is holy, the poem is holy, the voice is holy, the hearers are holy, the ecstasy is holy." I love his joyfulness and his assurance that the world was created to be holy, to be a blessing, and so I made him a character in the next poem. July evening, West Virginia. I gather stunted apples from the garden, peel them, carve out their bruised flesh, put them to simmer with cinnamon. On the radio, a woman's voice recollects the death of a famous poet, how his friends sat on the floor for hours, attending the old Buddhist as he slowly let go. I don't have time to meditate. A child needs me. I stir the pan, certain he will love whatever I find good. The poet at last surrendered, left his queer poems to the living for queer children to someday find, and gain strength from the joy of their holiness. We eat and go outside, watch fireflies blink as the darkness grows. For me, the landscape of West Virginia was beautiful, but because of its rugged nature, I didn't get a sense of how its earlier inhabitants might have lived. I didn't get a sense of the life there until I found a trail in a state park that was cluttered with boulders. And then I felt something ancient, something that had witnessed much. Rocks evoke that to me. Rocks are a presence that can go back to the beginning of geological time. They fill me with wonder. I wrote the next poem after visiting the Saguaro National Park in Arizona. I took the photographs that became this slide and the photo on the cover of the chapbook at that park. Prayer for Petroglyphs. Who looks at peckings on the face of rocks, still visible, though from an ancient hand, and is not stirred to wonder at intent of whom was meant to read these marks? Man shapes and spirals glow in evening's rays, when shadows lengthen in between cliffs' clefts, on boulders pink and brown as desert sand, above saguaro and the prickly pear. Perhaps Hohokam simply told the tale of where they found their game one hunting trip. Perhaps their people worshipped here at times, gave thanks for changing seasons and for meat. Their poems remain preserved in air. Aggressive bees protect these mysteries. I moved back to Manitowoc in 2008, and the fate of the Miro building was constantly in the news. I had been trying to write about it for a year or so without success. Then Jean Biegun invited me to participate in the first Poetic Pairings event held at the public library in 2018. Jeremiah Novak, my partner, selected a 19th century poem with strong meter and rhyme, which I don't usually use, but it provided the perfect form for my thoughts, and I finally had my poem. Rust Belt Factory, after John Boyle O'Reilly, Cry of the Dreamer. I was tired of broken windows at the abandoned factory, weary of shards in the shadows that puncture tires in the street. And I yearned for the days of my father when the factory lines were long, for workers made this town stronger, made dreams that carried on. I was tired of millionaires buying and selling again, deboning the factory of value, leaving asbestos and lead, removing its pipes for the copper, prying its timbers away, what used to be vibrant, now fodder for fires, vandals, decay. I was happy the city was willing to pay to get rid of the blight. 4 walls, 7 stories of building collapsed into dust at the site, made oceans of rubble and concrete, small mountains of yellow bricks, a painful wound deleted from the central city's breast. The site stands fenced and vacant. Seagulls peck in its dirt. There's only a concrete doorframe where steelworkers entered and left. Their history preserved in that doorframe, their legend forever impressed. Their toil made this town stronger. We need dreamers to progress. And one of the best things about moving back to Manitowoc has been to be a part of the lives of my nieces and nephews and their children. The last poem in the book, and my last poem here, was inspired by Amelia Johnson and Robbie Barbier. It reminds me of the poem I read at the beginning by Naomi Shea Nye, who mentioned ears that already know. And that's how I feel about all of you and this fellowship, that you already know this final poem about God's language. After dinner, the adults chat. I don't know what they discuss. Their children make demands of me. Bring 7 shells down from the shelf so they can discuss what they see. Pour water on Petoskey stones to reveal the honeycomb patterns. Print pages for them to color, a unicorn and a Mandela. They find a yoga mat in a dusty corner, unfurl it to serve as their station. I leave them on the floor coloring. The house settles around them. Their room glows with electric light. Whenever the adults pause, I hear the children's soft syllables, fragments of their songs. With voices as beautiful as the gospel, they speak to themselves and to each other. The world could rejoice in this language easily. Make all children fed, sheltered, loved, and listen.
Thank you, Peggy. Incredible. We do have time today. If we would like to respond to Peggy's poetry or have a question for Peggy, feel free. You can put your hand up or you can just unmute yourself.
On Sunday morning with a good Sunday morning from my childhood, which is blueberries and pancakes and a tuba with Romy Gaz. And moving on through the day to things that were familiar and we could identify with.
Thank you, Tom.
Where would your chapbook be on sale, Peggy?
It will be available from the publisher and also from Amazon, and I will have copies to sell myself.
Great.
Thank you for asking.
What she said about the Miro company was so striking, having been out of Wisconsin and then to see this empty lot after. I think she got the soul of what that meant to this town. I am going to be sure to share that with some of my nieces and nephews. One family especially, whose father worked there. But what that did for this town in so many kinds of ways, and you got to so many aspects of it. Thank you. It was very meaningful.
I don't know if you know this, Peggy. I think it was announced recently that that property is going to be, a deal has been worked with the city and the Boys and Girls Club of Wisconsin to set up a Boys and Girls Club on that property.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a local group been working on this for a couple years.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And they're very excited about it, and they're very inclusive. They're including, the YMCA is on the board, the police department's on the board. There's so many people that are working towards a lovely use of this property, and I certainly hope they keep that framework there. I think that's a monument almost to the work that was done. So,
Robert and I just went to one meeting when we joined the Bird Club, and we were so excited and went to our first meeting, and then of course the COVID happened, but it was so wonderful to see Peggy at the meeting. And Peggy, as a birder, it seems that you've been a long time birder, you and your husband, and could you share with us you know, have birds inspired your poems and your forays, seeking birds and the different species? Could you share something of that?
I am not as good a birder as my husband, but they've always been a part of our lives. I do have a couple of poems in here that have birds in them. Is there time for me to just read one?
Yes, please do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is called Christmas Bird Count. It's something that the birders do every year at Christmas. You never know what the weather's going to be like. Christmas Bird Count. We drive on country roads in the quiet of a long drizzle, burst of 7 starlings. Out of the mist comes a man shuffling across a blue lake, smooth as ceramic. He scuffs small splashes of water on top of the ice. Bob scans the shore with binoculars, brings back a whiff of wood smoke. He counts 11 pigeons I don't see. A crow investigates a lawn in golf course estates. 6 geese fly over a barnyard. Sheep rest in a small enclosure, some wearing canvas jackets. Lambs scamper toward us as we slow to greet them. My body grows beyond its borders into the moment of their attention. Yes, I see you. Yes, we are connected. Thank you for looking at my face. 3 crows peck in mud and stubble. I stare longingly at dark circles in the trees, left behind leaves clinging to bare branches. I will them to move, reveal wings, fly. A red-tailed hawk lights on a post nearby.
I just wanted to say that I was so honored to be asked to write the blurb for Peggy's chapbook, and to do that, I took a long time. I think rather maybe too long, but I read them virtually every night for about a month, and they give and they give and they give. They're such treasures, and just constantly kind of, I said I was marinating myself in them, and I was, but they have so much to give, and constant endless rereadings can bring out so much more. So just you should all buy the book and read it and read it and read it.
Well, you made me cry.
Peggy, give us the name of the book again.
It's called The Joy of Their Holiness. And I will be sending a link out on Facebook when it's available. And I'm friends with Erica,
Okay.
and Benita is my friend. So there'll be some people who can connect.
Cheryl, did you have a comment?
So not only are these memories of Wisconsin, you brought back memories of Canada, the blueberries. So when I was growing up, when I needed a reprieve, a number of people, I grew up in a little bit of a dysfunctional family environment. My mother was schizophrenic. In summers, I would be able to go up to Gravenhurst, Canada, which is almost like a Door County area. And there was a family cottage, and one treat, if we could, is my aunt and I would go pick blueberries up in the hills. And that picture just brought back the taste of her blueberry pie, that if she liked you and you were special, she would make you a blueberry pie if you came up, and her flaky crust. So thanks for that memory. Just, it really brought back a happy time in my life.
Beautiful. Any other comments this morning? I could keep going back over so many of the familiar touches that you brought exquisitely to us, Peggy, and we will make sure we get your book information out there for everyone. At this point, we will go into our closing song. Kathy picked it out for us this week, but it's one of my all-time favorites, and it fits beautifully with Peggy's words. Holy Now by Peter Mayer.
When I was a boy, each week on Sunday we would go to church and pay attention to the priest. And he would read the holy word and consecrate the holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. Today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And when I was in Sunday school, we would learn about the time Moses split the sea in two, and Jesus made the water wine. And I remember feeling sad. Miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Everything's a miracle. Wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at home. So the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, but finding where there isn't one. When holy water was rare at best, barely wet my fingertips, but now I have to hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of it. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now. Testament, that'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush and singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out, how things have changed since then. Everything is holy now. It used to be a world half there, heaven's second-rate hand-me-down, but I walk it with a reverent air, 'cause everything is holy now.
And now we take our leave, blessed by our connections to one another. Before we gather here again, may each of us bring happiness into another's life, and may we remain together in spirit until the hour we meet again.